Some crimes are so disturbing that they feel less like history and more like a nightmare. In 1989, one case on the US-Mexico border shocked both countries. What began as the disappearance of an American college student during spring break soon uncovered a world of drug trafficking, ritual violence, and a cult led by a man who claimed murder could make his followers untouchable. At the center of the story was Adolfo de Jesús Constanzo. Born in Miami in 1962 to a Cuban family, Constanzo built an image of himself as a mystic and spiritual guide. He borrowed elements from Afro-Caribbean religious traditions and used them to create an atmosphere of fear and control. Over time, he gained followers who believed he could bring them luck, power, protection, and success. His followers called him El Padrino, the Godfather. Among the people closest to him was Sara Aldrete, a college student from Brownsville, Texas, who later became known as La Madrina, the Godmother. Together, they led a group operating in Matamoros, Mexico, just across the border from Brownsville. On the surface, Matamoros was a popular destination for Americans looking for nightlife and cheap resvlečenja during spring break. But for Constanzo's group, it became a place for trafficking, violence, and ritual killings. Constanzo convinced his followers that human sacrifice could protect them from police, enemies, and failure. He centered many of his rituals around an enga, a ceremonial cauldron that investigators later said contained a horrifying mix of blood, bones, animal remains, and human body parts. He told the group these rituals would make them powerful, and they believed him. By early 1989, the cult's violence had escalated. Victims were kidnapped, murdered, and buried at a remote property outside Matamoros called Rancho Santa Elena. Some were rivals, some were chosen at random, others were killed because Constanzo believed their deaths would strengthen his power. Then came the case that exposed everything. During spring break in March 1989, 21-year-old Mark Kilroy, a pre-med student from the University of Texas at Austin, traveled to Matamoros with friends. He was described as responsible, kind, and focused on his future. But during a night out, he became separated from his group. According to investigators, cult members saw him near a bar, abducted him, and took him to Rancho Santa Elena. At first, his disappearance seemed like one more missing person case in a dangerous border region. But Mark's family pushed hard for answers, and the search quickly gained attention on both sides of the border. Then, on April 1st, 1989, Mexican federal officers followed a suspicious vehicle to Rancho Santa Elena. What they found there was horrifying. Investigators uncovered multiple buried bodies. One of them was Mark Kilroy. The discovery stunned both Mexico and the United States. This was not just a murder scene, it was a ritual killing site tied to a violent criminal group, mixing drug trafficking with superstition and terror. Authorities found evidence of altars, ritual objects, and the infamous cauldron Constanzo had used to control his followers. The media quickly labeled them Narcosatanists. That word spread fast, but the truth was even more disturbing. This was not just blind madness, it was organized violence driven by manipulation, fear, and power. Constanzo used spiritual language to dominate people and convince them that killing served a higher purpose. That is what makes this case so terrifying. Not just that one man was willing to kill, but that so many others were willing to help. After the ranch was discovered, Constanzo fled. He eventually made his way to Mexico City with several members of his inner circle, including Sara Aldrete. A major manhunt followed, with authorities under huge pressure to capture him. In May 1989, police tracked the group to an apartment in Mexico City. As officers closed in, Constanzo reportedly refused to surrender. Instead, he ordered one of his followers to shoot him. When police entered the apartment, he was dead. For years, he had claimed supernatural protection. In the end, he died as a fugitive hiding from the law.
Sarah Audrete was captured alive, and her arrest drew enormous public attention. Many people found her especially disturbing because she did not fit the usual image of someone involved in such crimes. She was educated, articulate, and outwardly ordinary, yet investigators believed she had played a major role in the cult. As surviving members faced trial, the case became one of the most infamous crime stories in modern Mexican history. It reflected many of the fears of that era: cults, cartels, corruption, ritual violence, and the terrifying idea that evil can hide behind charm, belief, and ordinary faces. But beneath all the headlines were real victims. Mark Kilroy was not just a spring breaker. He was a son, a friend, and a young man with a future. And he was not the only victim buried at Rancho Santa Elena. That is the clearest truth in this story. There was no magic here, only manipulation, only violence, only murder. And maybe that is why the Matamoros Cult Killings still haunt people today, because they remind us that the darkest crimes do not come from another world. They come from this one.